And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studio, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everyone, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers, coming to you always from the Huntsville Attic. Today we're going to talk about 420, that special time, that special date. It has a special meaning to a lot of people who, we're talking about tonight, 420. Smoking the wacky tobacco, the culture, all of it. Excited, got a great crew here, excited for the show. I'm John Hammertime Holshoe, with me always is Rockin' Robbie Billups.
Hey John, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Sans the cold, you probably can hear that.
Yeah? Are you self-conscious about the cold, John?
I am. I think people are like, who is this? They'll just turn it off. Like, they tune in for me, and when they don't hear me, no, that's not true.
They might be like, who's this imposter?
Yeah, Robbie and who is that they replaced him with.
Yeah. No, I am super pumped to be here. Of course, 420. Yeah, like you said, that wonderful time of the year for everybody who partakes of the ganj. I believe the hipsters are saying
Is that
today.
what the kids are calling it now?
Yes. With us tonight, we got the magnificent Brooks Gibbs.
Yay!
How are you doing?
I'm good, man.
Happy 420. And also, James Lineback.
What's up, everybody?
What's up? Good, man. We're chilling. What are you up to?
Just chilling.
Just podcasting. So the history of 420. Like the fact, okay, of course, marijuana in pop culture. Why 420? Why is it even a thing? Where does it come from? John, what can you tell me?
Well, there was a group in San Rafael, California. They used to meet there outside the school, called themselves the Waldos, because they met at this wall.
Because they has the wall.
And they were looking for an abandoned cannabis crop. So they would meet all the time at 420 next to the Louis Pasteur statue. So the code word was 420 Louis. So they'd meet there all the time, go look for this cannabis plant. I don't think they ever found it, but the 420 stuck. So
Wait,
I
so
think that's
these guys
the
were
truest
looking
thing I
for
could find.
weed that somebody just threw out?
No, an actual crop that's planted somewhere in that area.
So they were looking to steal from somebody who was
exactly.
Oh,
They were-
crop jackers.
Yeah, they were looking for the El Dorado of fresh crops, I believe, right? All right, so that's what happened in, 1971, right?
71, indeed.
So until about 1989, 420, the term just kind of languishes in obscurity. You know, it's passed along from stoner to stoner as a completely underground grassroots phenomenon. This is all coming directly from the High Times magazine, by the way. 1990, there was a mysterious flyer promoting 420 to start circulating around at Grateful Dead shows. All right? In 1991, High Times publishes the text of the mysterious flyer, which claims that 420 started in San Rafael, California, as a code for police, like the police code for marijuana smoking in progress. And it also promoted it as the Grandmaster of all holidays, April 20th. Now, the police code thing turned out to be completely bunk. And another really cool thing in their timeline is 1994, clocks in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction are set to 420. So that's one of its first, references in pop culture. Does anybody remember that from Pulp Fiction?
I never noticed that.
Me neither. I guess we have to look for that.
Yeah, you do.
Got the freeze frame
You
that
have to
one.
look at clocks.
Yeah. So we're saying that basically by the 90s is when it really started picking up steam. And people started, meeting up and smoking
this is
some
the best
weed.
time.
Yeah, and I think it's because of high schoolers, like the origin.
Yeah, it's the time you can all meet up after school.
Before the parents get home at 5 o'clock.
Right.
The 1995, the Cannabis Action Network stages its first annual 420 ball in San Francisco. And in 1998, High Times finally debunks the marijuana smoking in progress theory and declares the Waldos the true originators of 420, after the group produces letters and posters to prove this claim.
Nice.
They were like, that's us, motherfuckers. We're taking credit. In 2002, the Waldos actually reunited at the High Times Doobie Awards. In 2004, the clocks in Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation are all set at 420. And then, of course, Coppola and Tarantino become an item briefly. Very interesting. And in 2005, High Times suggests moving it from 420 to 520 because when you're working a 9-to-5 job, sometimes it's worth it to wait that extra hour. You don't want to... Smoking weed, I guess, at the very end of your job, maybe do it afterwards. But that's kind of the history of 420. Brooks, is 420 the date, the meaning? Has it ever had any kind of meaning to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like any other day. It was like any other day, but we kind of made an extra effort to hang out more and chill out somewhere.
Oh, back in the days, yeah.
Just go somewhere where like nobody was bothering us for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was good times. I remember.
It's good times, and it's nice. I guess back in the day when you're smoking weed and you're younger and all that stuff. It's kind of like it's that whole counterculture thing. You kind of find the community in it, and you start bonding with other people that smoke weed and start bonding through it or whatever. So the 420 is a time to like get together with your friends and maybe camp out or hold a barbecue and just hang, have good times, listen to some good music, right, James? What do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. When I was in college, our spring fling type thing somehow seemed to happen every year on 420.
Very nice.
Like the day that everyone pretty much is going to skip class and go do all the stuff you can do on campus, because have fun rides and all kinds of crazy stuff on campus.
Yeah.
Free food everywhere.
John,
So free food everywhere on 420.
Yeah, right.
And you're skipping class.
That's perfect. That's perfect for college students. John, does 420 even mean anything to you at all?
Not really. I mean, I know. Until recently, I didn't know how it got started, but I'm aware of 420. And I'll even giggle at work. Haha, it's 420. But I don't partake in the wacky tobacco.
It's really crazy to me that a group of high school students started a whole movement. It became a whole thing. I remember when I worked at the movie theater, right? And the marquees that you have above the theater, with the time and the day and all that. So there was one that was 420, and I just ganked it, man. I just took it from Hollywood 18. I hope statute of limitations, right? That's way beyond. But
they're totally coming for you now.
There was something special about it, man. And then when you're looking, and when you're young and you're doing that stuff, and I don't know, it's crazy to me that just 5 kids came up with this in some random community in California, in the 70s. It's just wild, man.
Some weird legend about
it seemed
hidden
like
pot garden.
Yeah, and it really kind of caught on through the Grateful Dead and that whole Deadhead scene and people following around the Grateful Dead. Now, a big pot band, and we'll get into some pot music a little bit later on. But some not so fun facts about 420. Some terrible things happened on 420. Hitler was born. That's one of them.
Way to bring us down, dude.
Yeah, man.
Waco.
Harshin on everything right now.
The assault on Waco happened. And in 1999, unfortunately, Columbine happened on 420. So the day does have a little bit of taint to it, so I'm glad that there is something positive to remember about that day as well. And I also remember recently some Earth Days falling on that day. How appropriate.
So we're talking about the history of 420, but I want to talk a little bit about marijuana and films. Because obviously we talk about films on Pop Culture Philosophers a lot. Probably most of our episodes are about
movies,
films.
yeah.
So it started earlier films. I think of a lot of movies with weed. I think of comedies, or I think of people getting in silly situations or getting in trouble. Or but if you go back, it was mostly propaganda films used to dissuade people from smoking weed.
Yeah,
and some of it was
to the
more
devil's music.
Yeah,
jazz.
it was terrifying. Some of this, the way they would emphasize, you're going to go to hell or you're going to die if you smoke weed.
Guy ends up with the basically demon-looking makeup after he smoked too much weed.
Smoked too much weed,
black eyes, and his hair's all sticking up.
Oh, you
like
smoke
horns.
it one time, just a hit, and you're dead.
Reefer Madness is
Reefer
one of those,
Madness.
and that's such a funny film, though.
Yeah,
It
Reefer
is
Madness
so
was one of
funny
the
when
first
you watch
ones.
it.
1936. So I didn't realize that Reefer Madness was that old a film. I was thinking
Yeah.
it was the 50s. 1936 was Reefer Madness, and they kind of started that. So that was the dangers of marijuana. You'll fall under its spell, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then as you go further on, it becomes more acceptable, especially musicians were a part of that. But in the 70s, you get more comedies and stuff like that. You get Cheech and Chong, and then eventually you get Jay and Silent Bob. So marijuana has taken this from being an after-school special to being a focus of much delighted comedies.
Yeah. I mean, it also ties into the whole, in fact, the making of movies being artistic and it seems to help people flow and make things. So
Creative people really do seem to like marijuana.
Yeah, musicians, filmmakers, artists of all sorts. I think they use that to reach a different, maybe layer or a different level. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people do partake of some marijuana for that.
You mentioned that, it started out as propaganda films, and it starts out very, very early on as propaganda films. It shows you how soon the war on drugs and marijuana started, and no matter what you guys think about the war on drugs or the war on marijuana, that is where it started, and it started for not the best reasons. But it's really 1969, it seems, and I guess that's because of the generation of the 60s and what was going on. But Easy Rider is one of the first times I can think of marijuana being in a film, but not like in a negative connotation. They're just guys, and they're smoking weed, and that's when they open up to each other as characters in a very, very powerful scene, if anybody remembers that movie. And then it goes on, it builds up in the 70s and the 80s. You got all those comedies and stuff, but in the 80s, even giant movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club's a movie that like I grew up watching as a child.
Yeah.
And watching that scene and understanding kind of what was going on in that scene and being like, I think my parents were doing this last week. I don't know. But I don't know. Anybody...
Teen Wolf when I was a kid.
Yes.
Most of the time you watch the edited copy from TV, and then you go back and watch a DVD copy, and you're like, oh, that's what he was smelling for in the garage. Oh, that's why they decided to go van surfing.
Yeah.
Because normally you don't decide to go van surfing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, man, something smells funny in this garage.
Teen Wolf would
Let's
totally
go
be
van
down for it.
surfing.
Brooks, any movies that you like? Marijuana, like scenes that stand out to you?
Oh, there's so many, man. But I think my favorite is the line, "The dude abides," and then Sam Elliott's character comes in. I like that, knowing that he's out there taking it easy for us poor sinners.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite, funniest line from a film.
Yeah, it definitely evolved into more comedies and more... I don't know, it's just more socially acceptable, regardless if it's legal here or there. And there's definitely been more lax on weed as far as the laws go, but it definitely, in pop culture, especially films, it's huge now. I
mean, even to the point now where you have movies where they're not like, I don't know, you look at things like Breakfast Club, and they're opening, it's very much, Breakfast Club is one of my favorite weed scenes in movies. Very much like that Easy Rider scene, where that's the moment that group comes together and starts sharing their experiences with each other.
Yeah, they couldn't be any more different.
Yeah, and it's a realistic portrayal of the effects, the therapeutic effects that marijuana has, and how it actually can unify people. Like, that's something that, researching this podcast a little bit, I just realized all these look at all the different types of movies that have marijuana in them. It's not just comedies, it's dramas, it's actions. Blade 2. One of my favorite lines in Blade 2 is when Norman Reedus is there and Blade shows up and he goes, "Hey, Blade, you want a hit of this?" And he's like, "Later." First of all, Blade didn't say no. But I like how it can really connect people, and I think that's what they show in the Breakfast Club. As you were saying, John, all those different types of people, and it unified them. It got them together.
Well, it's kind of the act of, acting out, like your parents tell you not to do it, so like, well, fuck you, I'm going to try it anyway. And, it doesn't affect you the way you thought it would.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that all their parents have done it. They don't want their kids to do that. Everybody's parents have done it, and they're like, we don't want you guys to do that.
Yeah.
We did it. It was more different back then. It was more social or acceptable. I don't know. But
some of the famous stoners in film and pop culture, like the Dude. You talked about the Dude. That's a good one, right, guys?
Yeah, he's probably the number one film stoner in my list.
And like we were talking about things like in Teen Wolf, James, that we didn't recognize or understand when we were younger. Dude, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shaggy and Scooby.
I watched
I'm
so
pretty
many
sure.
Scooby-Doos back in the day, and I never got that until I was a teenager. Like, oh, Shaggy was a stoner, man.
And then, of course...
That's not proven, though.
It seems like when most people think of marijuana in movies, they will think of the comedies, and they will think of Cheech and Chong.
Oh, yeah. Cheech and Chong are probably the most famous.
Those guys smoked?
Up until Jay and Silent Bob, I would say Cheech and Chong were probably the most famous as far as... And then all their films are pretty much centered around weed. I mean, they're a comedy duo, and they are hilarious. But there's not a film I don't think they have that there's no weed in it.
I've only watched the TV edits, man. I didn't know they even smoked.
It's like a 5-minute long film. It just rolls credits.
I was like,
Lots
man,
and
this
lots of
film is really
commercials.
short.
I remember one scene when they're like, I don't really remember those movies so well because it's been so long since I've seen them, and I have mostly seen like the TV edits or whatever. But I remember the scene when they're in the car and it's like, yo, man, this is good stuff. What is it? He's like, it's Labrador, man. And he's like,
Labrador,
yeah, like my dog ate my stash, and I had to follow it around with a baggie for a day and a half to get it back.
We smoking dog shit, Holmes?
And then they're sitting there like, man, I'm messed up. And they're like, how fast are we driving? And he's like, I think we're parked, man. And they're just parked on the median. I remember that. And I remember really, really liking that. But Jay and Silent Bob has some good stuff. And we will be talking about Jay and Silent Bob right after this break. More 420 on Pop Culture Philosophers. Right after this. Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here, and on behalf of everybody at Pop Culture Philosophers, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast, and also to tell you that we in no way endorse the smoking of marijuana. In fact, in most states in this country, it is illegal, and if you believe that it should not be, you should fight for your rights to smoke marijuana. Maybe check out NORML or other websites and causes and things that you can do. Write your congressman. I don't know if that really counts or really does anything, but try it out. And if you're one of the people in Colorado and Washington with proper licenses, congratulations. We hope to join you soon. Power to the people.
Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. Earlier we were talking about the history of 420. Then we're talking about marijuana and movies. And now we want to talk about our favorite dealers. There's just two guys down the street from... No, I'm kidding. It's actually Jay and Silent Bob. Everybody knows Jay and Silent Bob. Even the people they don't smoke weed. I mean, they know who Jay and Silent Bob are.
Jay and Silent Bob smoked?
They're not only in the Kevin Smith films, but they've appeared.
I only watched the TV edits.
Yeah,
They were
other
on
pieces
that awesome show Degrassi.
They were.
They
in
were.
Degrassi. And they were in Scream 3.
I never saw Scream.
Yeah, so they're all over the place.
Yeah, they're on like a Hollywood tour.
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob are, again, the most famous dealers. Now in the cartoon, we'll get to that. They're not. They sell like fireworks.
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
fireworks.
But they are.
These guys want any fireworks?
Yeah, they're weed dealers.
Blow your arm off, man.
We can cut open Tubby and live inside his stomach to survive. Already made that Star Wars reference.
So Jay and Silent Bob, first printing Clerks. So love Clerks. That was a big deal to me.
That was the first movie that had Jay and Silent Bob?
Yeah, it was the first
yeah,
movie with Jay and Silent Bob.
definitely
That's the
my
first
favorite appearance,
Kevin Smith
too.
film.
I
Yeah.
think it's their most poignant.
Really? The most poignant appearance of Jay and Silent Bob is in Clerks. I think it might be my favorite too. Like, I really like Clerks. But from Clerks...
In the studio, by the way, we do have a Clerks poster signed by Kevin Smith himself.
Yes.
Hanging here in the Huntsville Attic. You guys can't see that, but it's an awesome...
The door is blocking it
poster.
right
I think
now.
you were one of the people that bought that for
I
me.
may have. For the studio.
Yeah, what?
So Jay and Silent Bob, so it's Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, who, of course, Kevin Smith wrote and directed all these films. And they are the dealers, hang out outside the Quick Stop or wherever they appear. Most of the time, they're standing out somewhere just dealing. And
Leaning on the wall.
and they're troublemakers for the most part. And Silent Bob doesn't speak, except for when he does speak, usually once a film, it's usually something really profound. Silent Bob. And there's actually a part in the cartoon where he's like, I'm Jay and I'm Silent Bob. And if Silent Bob could talk, after Silent Bob introduces himself, because he says Silent Bob, and if Silent Bob could talk. But they're probably our favorite. And again, not only do they make appearances, but they eventually got their own film, which is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
They
A
talk
big
about
Hollywood movie, a big road trip Hollywood blockbuster
Exactly.
movie type thing. Yeah.
But again, there's probably not more famous weed dealers in history than Jay and Silent Bob.
What is your favorite Jay and Silent Bob appearance, John?
Probably going to say Clerks, because that's the first time you see them. And I love when he's talking about, Jay's talking about his cousin. What was the band name?
Oh, Fuck You Yankee Blue Jeans.
Fuck You Yankee Blue Jeans is the band name.
Fuck You Yankee Blue Jeans or some shit.
I want to make fuck like a berserker. What is that? What is it?
So good. My
Yeah.
love for you is ticking clock berserker. All that stuff is so good. All that stuff. But Brooks, what's your favorite Jane Bob appearance?
It would be in Clerks, probably.
We all say Clerks. All four of us said Clerks. Why Clerks?
Well, Clerks is like there's no glorification of them. They're just like two dudes. Like, why are they here? Like, why are they even bothering putting these guys in here?
Yeah.
But they do have a purpose, and you find out what it is, you know?
They definitely, from Mallrats on, become more cartoon-like.
Yeah.
And in Clerks, they're not. And in Clerks, they're just
kind of
hanging
the
there.
chorus.
Yes. If it was like a Greek tragedy, which Clerks has the build of a Greek tragedy, like it really does, that's what they would be. Like, what do you think about them in Clerks? Why does that stand out?
I mean, it's just the maybe the black and white just makes them so real. You know, it definitely makes you. I mean, and the at the place where they stand against that wall is just so gritty, but it could be anywhere.
You know, Jason Mewes, the character of Jay is basically based on Jason Mewes.
Yeah.
And it seems like, you know, he definitely gets more polished in the films because he works really hard.
Yeah.
Because in Mallrats, he had to actually fight to win the role back because they wanted like Seth Green or Breckin Meyer to play him, right?
Oh,
So,
Breckenmeyer.
yeah, I know, right? I would have been Clueless or something. It was Clueless of that studio. But so you can tell that he's actually polished the character a little bit more, and it's become more of a character outside of the actor himself, outside of Mewes. But in that first movie, it's like, dude, he's just hanging out on set, and they're just videotaping him. Like, it's like he's not even acting, apparently. What's your favorite lines, John?
It's not specific. It would be snooch to the nooch. But he says so much. Jay says the funniest fucking things, man. Jay is hilarious. From hollering at people passing by. One example was a lady's walking by and he says, "Yo, baby, you ever had your asshole licked by a fat man in an overcoat?" Obviously referring to he's trying to help out his buddy Silent Bob, I guess. And then obviously they're always talking about smoking weed because they're dealing, but he's also always talking about weed. So rolling fatty, smoking blunts. Who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts. Stuff like that, man.
You like that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, somebody's trying to buy for them. $15, little man. Put that shit in my hand. If that money doesn't show, then owe me.
Very stream of consciousness.
Ha!
Anything he thinks, he says.
I think I agree with you. And he rhymes a lot of it.
And he says the most outlandish, improper, rude things. And Kevin Smith says that the reason why it works, it wouldn't work on any other character, but they said that Jason brings like an innocence to this character. Like he's that lovable idiot, man. You're like, he just really doesn't know any better. You know, I don't know. It's just something about like any other character in a film that says that. Like your quote, you know, to the woman about the man in the overcoat. That's terrible. But it's a terrible
hilarious.
thing to
It
say.
is, but
You
it's
should
hilarious.
not say
But
that.
coming out of Jay,
Yeah,
it just,
it's funny.
I don't know. It's funny, and it's just because what a fucking idiot. He doesn't even know that that's like the
He
wrong
is an
thing to
idiot.
say.
He is an idiot.
I really like, first of all, like my favorite, we all say Clerks is our favorite appearance, but I also do like Mallrats a little bit because they're so hijinky in Mallrats, and that whole plan they have against
Steal the
LaFours.
cassette.
Yeah, to steal the tape cassette, you know, it just, that's pretty funny and
The
ridiculous.
utility belts.
But in Clerks, it's when, you know, Jay is talking to Dante at the end of the film, you know, and he's like talking. He's like, "Well, you had girlfriends?" He's like, "Yeah, I had some girlfriend too, you know, but all they wanted from me is weed and shit." He's like, "You know, shit. My grandmother used to say, what's better, fucking a good plate with nothing on it? No, wait, I fucked up. What's a good plate with nothing on it?" I love that whole scene for some reason, and apparently, like, he actually did fuck up the line, and that's what he said, and then recovered himself.
And they just left it.
And they just left it in there. But I really like that. And then he's like, it just goes on, and he's like, "Let's get out of here." But then Silent Bob looks at Dante. He's like, "You know, there are a lot of fine-looking women in the world, but not all of them bring you lasagna at work." And Dante's like, "Oh my god." And then the original script, Dante gets killed after making this like life momentous changing decision. What's your favorite quote, James?
I mean, yeah, you pretty much just covered it right there, man. Just when he, you know, just ex machina, just like, boom, here's the thing to solve all your problems here. Just think about this.
Absolutely. And another one is Chasing Amy. You're not prepared for that. You know, if you're a fan
His
of
monologue.
Clerks, you're a fan of Mars. All of a sudden, Silent Bob gets this giant monologue that just sums up everything about the movie. I really, really like it. He's definitely like the oracle of these films.
Yeah.
Speaking of the oracle, Brooks, what are your favorite Jay and Silent Bob quotes?
There's not many Silent Bob quotes to choose from. But Jay, he says plenty. My favorite, though, is... tough to say. Everything he says,
fatty, boom, batty, blunt.
everything he says is just so outlandish. It's like anything he says, you could basically say it was your favorite thing he ever said.
Oh, yeah. I like that part in Clerks when he's all like... He's like, you're fucking rude, Silent Bob.
Oh,
Rude
yeah.
as hell.
Oh, get away from me, you queer. I hate guys. I love women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a funny little dynamic I really like.
I really love. I was going to point out in Jay and Silent Bob, and we actually see how they get that orangutan at the end of Mallrats. I don't really explain that. They just play that Weezer song and they walk off with an orangutan.
They did a comic, didn't they?
Yeah. So Jay and Silent Bob actually
Isn't
Strike
Chasing
Back
Dogma
shows how they get the
between those two?
orangutan,
Yeah.
Suzanne.
Yeah, and it's also in the comic book Chasing Dogma,
Yeah,
which
Chasing
bridges
Dogma.
Chasing Amy and Dogma.
So in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, there's the part where the orangutan jumps into a cab and rides off, and they're like, oh, Jay's freaking out. Where'd the animal go? Where'd the orangutan go? Or whatever. And Silent Bob up to this point has been quiet throughout the film, and he just freaks the hell out. You remember that? He's like,
Yes.
He's like, animals of Hollywood. They went to Hollywood. What the fuck? He just like loses his temper, man, because he's so quiet, and when he does speak, it's very like life-changing, except for that instance where he just goes off on Jay. That's the best, one of my favorite parts.
You mentioned the Weezer song. Suzanne, you're all that I wanted.
Kevin Smith, a Weezer fan,
Indeed.
like us all.
So that leads me to music, marijuana, and music. Now, unlike movies, when movies and marijuana first entangled, movies were saying a very negative propaganda type message about the evils of marijuana. Music was not like that. In fact, very early on, jazz musicians, blues musicians, they were like, dude, this makes the music sound so good. And it really, really does. So there's a link already, first of all, with artists liking marijuana and people experiencing art liking marijuana, as if it enhances the art. James, why does weed make creating and listening to music better?
I think there's definitely some kind of an auditory effect to marijuana that makes you appreciate sounds more.
Yeah, and I think you can see and sense some of the deeper layers of the music and notice sounds and things that you didn't before. Maybe even in something. And think about, that's why bands like the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Zeppelin, they started doing weird, cool things with the stereo effect. Pink Floyd, stuff like that. That's great. Brooks, why is music and weed so hand in hand?
Well, music, when if you're getting high, you want to listen to music. And you want to listen to good music. Music that, stimulates you.
The cool thing I like, Brooks, about music and marijuana is that it doesn't matter what music. It has influenced the production and creation and the listening of everything from rap and hip-hop, R&B, the blues, the jazz, rock and roll, even country music. Even country music, Brooks.
Yes.
It sounds better when you're high for some reason. Why is it?
Yeah, well, you mean it's like... it's hard to say, really.
It just does.
Yeah.
It just
it's just
does.
a certain music just like moves you and makes you, feel like you're not wasting your time, And that's why it's so good to you and why so many musicians were like, coming out saying, hey, this does help you, so do it. And we did.
John, any thoughts?
I would say it's got to. I mean, I know that drugs in general just changed your perception of how you absorb things, either listening or seeing things. So obviously marijuana is one of those.
Marijuana's not
And-
really a drug, though.
Yeah, well, let's just say it's an herb.
It's not like a pill.
Yeah, it's an herb. But not only the music listening experience, but obviously the production, like he was talking about. I mean, a lot of musicians not only reference it, but I'm sure they've used it to influence them in many ways, shapes, and forms.
Speaking of these artists who have used marijuana to enhance their musics and their creations, what are some of your favorite, let's just call them pot or, weed or heady, whatever, basically bands and artists, musicians that are associated with marijuana? Brooks.
I'm into that funky Cypress Hill shit, man.
Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I remember when I was a kid, one of my first experiences with hardcore rap was the Friday soundtrack. My buddy gave me the Friday soundtrack and listened to it, and it had roll it up, light it up, smoke it up, inhale, exhale. And I was like, oh man. And Cypress Hill is very, very pro weed.
Dude, I remember being in middle school and having a single to I have a bunch of different singles to Cypress Hill stuff, and Hits from the Bong were on there. I love that song. Love Cypress Hill. Good pick. What about you, James?
Clutch.
Clutch. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have one of my favorite songs, Space Grass.
Space Grass.
It's about like a cosmic journey in your dark swinger.
Well, shit. I want some of that Space Grass. What about you, Brooks?
I've never heard the song.
I know. I'm just saying Space Grass. That just sounds crazy. Even John would probably smoke that.
Space
He's
grass.
needling me.
Anything else, James?
No, I mean that's just my favorite.
That's your favorite, absolutely. There's some other really, really good ones. I would always think of like the Dr. Dre and the Snoop Dogg. So Dr. Dre made an album called The Chronic.
Yeah. It had like a pot leaf on the disc.
Yeah, dude,
it
you
was
remember
awesome.
how powerfully...
Remember 2001 had the like neon pot leaf?
Oh, yeah. Dude. Like, pot leaf t-shirts, pot leaf everything. People were making money off of selling pot leaf stuff. It was a big deal, especially in the 90s because of artists
yeah.
like Dre and Snoop and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Cypress Hill. Of course, there's the Grateful Dead. There's your Widespread Panic. Sometimes those get into more just overall druggy type people. Obviously, there's also like Sublime. Smoke Two Joints is a powerful weed anthem. John, any music that you want to talk about?
My favorite one in particular is Hash Pipe by Weezer. Now,
That's
Rivers,
a drug song? I only listen to the radio edit.
I always thought he said ass wipe.
Pipe.
That's what I thought,
Yeah,
too.
they actually do have edited versions of that song, including one where they did at a skate park called Half Pipe, just for the record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
so they
got my
So it's like a
half pipe.
skater anthem.
so he hasn't admitted to smoking weed, but he does make references to song. I mean, he's got songs. He's got one called a Dope Nose. He's got one on the new
Dope
album
Nose, yeah.
called
I think that's about cocaine, John.
You Want to Get High.
I think Dope Nose is
I
about
don't know if you
cocaine.
take marijuana through your nose. You could, I suppose.
Drugs?
Yeah, so at some point in time, someone's like, well, they should just come out and straight up say, we're all on drugs, man, or something like that. And so they do have a song, an album called We're All on Drugs. But Hash Pipe in particular is the one that stands out as one of my favorites. But there's a lot of great bands that talk about weed music.
We talked about a lot of them. Cypress Hill, Snoop Dogg. Me personally, got to give major shouts out to Bob Marley. Right?
Right.
Bob Marley's probably one of the first people that people think of
Oh, yeah.
when they think of marijuana artists. Bob Marley was
His music
all about
just
it.
goes so well with
Well,
getting high.
reggae in general. You got Peter Tosh, you got so many others. Reggae in general is just a very chill, relaxing, slow-paced kind of just chill music, and it seems to really work with it well. But even things like dance music work with people that smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
And also a big reggae-influenced band, 311.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
me
Yeah.
some 311. And that leads me to my next questions. Favorite marijuana songs. We talked about our artists and some of our favorite songs from those artists, but if anybody's got anything else, speaking of 311, Hydroponic. Brooks, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hydroponic's a great song.
Listen to that song a lot.
Who's Got the Herb, which is a cover of the Human Rights
I
song.
remember that one too.
That's a great one. Cypress Hill, Hits from the Bong, like we said.
yeah.
And one that is a very cool song, and I just love this song. I played it in marching band with my homie fellow T-Dogs.
Marching band.
Yeah, the
he went
marching
there.
band.
He went all the way back there.
I got 5 on it. I love that song. James, some favorite pot songs.
Man, we've already covered so many great ones.
We have.
It's hard to come up with another one.
You can cover one that we haven't done, or that we have done, if you want to. You know, "Smoke Two Joints" is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one.
I like Dr. Green Thumb.
Oh,
it has
Cypress Hill.
that funky beat. That boom, doom, 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 doom.
I'd like to show you just where I'm from. Hello, my name is Dr. Green Thumb.
Yeah.
That's a good one too.
John, you got anything besides Weezer?
Not really.
John's like, no, I don't listen to that kind of
I mean,
music.
I listened to a lot of stuff in the 90s that you were listening to. Sublime, Dr. Dre, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anything off the
One
top
other
of my
thing I want to talk about real quick is the Himpalation album.
Yeah.
They've done a few Himpalation albums. It's sponsored or produced by Normal. Like proceeds, when you buy them, they go to Normal, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, because they're not all criminals just because they smoke a little dope. And not through their nose, John. But
Well, some criminals do smoke dope, but not all guys who smoke dope are criminals, I guess.
Very profound way to say that.
Yeah.
But Himpalation's cool. It's got people like Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
Ziggy Marley, Bob Dylan, or covers of Bob Dylan. Like Bob Dylan is the guy who got the Beatles to first smoke weed. He changed the history of music by getting the Beatles high. Think about that. And they made Ringo go first. Did you ever hear that story, John?
What's that all about?
Obviously, he does not.
But Himpalation's good stuff. That is where, of course, you can find the studio version of Who's Got the Herb by 311. Many, many good songs. Side Mouse and the Bong.
Yeah.
Side Mouse and the Bong. So many good songs. Led Zeppelin, I think, is
Zeppelin.
appropriate to listen to
Black
under
Dog.
the influence. And Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big thing in the 60s and 70s, man. We changed things, and you can see it in the music. But even as far back as the 20s and 30s, marijuana influenced music. The blues, jazz, and beyond. And when you take blues and jazz and country and throw it all together in one thing, you know what you get? Rock and roll. Speaking of rock and roll, we're going to rock and roll into the next break. We'll be right back with the top 5 marijuana films of all time. Stay tuned on Pop Culture Philosophers.
Hey everyone, Hammertime Holshoe here. I want to take a moment to talk to you about our YouTube channel. Be sure to find the Pop Culture Philosophers and subscribe for all new and exclusive content each and every week. We have a ton of programs for you and pleasure, including Robbie Rants, movie reviews, super mythology, PCP Top 5s, and the new smash PCP on the Spot. Be sure to subscribe to the Pop Culture Philosophers on YouTube. Thank you. Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. Earlier we were talking about marijuana and movies, and now we're going to talk about our top 5, our favorite films. Talk about weed, wacky tobacco for 420. I'm actually going to start with James. James, your top 5 favorite marijuana movies.
So my number 5 in my top 5, Super Troopers.
Great
That
movie.
is a funny movie.
Oh, yeah.
Number 4, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
Who knew they could make a whole movie about just a trip to White Castle?
Well, you know, when you're up in the north there's some distance sometimes in between when there's a White Castle or anything else. Number 3, Half Baked.
Hilarious. Love Half Baked. Maybe on other people's top 5 as well. I think.
I would suspect so. Number 2, Pineapple Express. And number 1, The Big Lebowski.
Oh,
Dun, 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 dun.
I feel that's gonna be on a lot of people's top
Yeah.
5.
More than likely, I would
It's
assume.
gonna be like everybody's top.
The
5.
dude approves.
He does
that.
approve and abide.
So why Pineapple Express was one of those movies that took me by surprise how much I love the film.
Yeah,
So why
'cause
is it your
it's-
number 2?
It's a really good buddy comedy. Like two people who normally wouldn't be on this adventure together who are, and who by the end are, close closer, and if not, best friends.
And it's Seth Rogen and
James Franco.
Franco.
And isn't James Franco his weed dealer?
Yes.
Yeah, fucking lingers,
Yeah.
man.
So they end up teaming up. Yeah, it's a hilarious movie. It's you're right, together. I love them together as it is, and Pineapple Express was definitely I don't maybe partake in the wacky tobacco. So I'm like, this movie looks funny, but it's not going to be the funniest thing. My friends are all pushing me to see it. Let's go see it at the theater.
Yeah.
I went and saw it, and I was on the floor laughing. This movie is so damn funny.
Yeah,
and it is a great team up. You're great. You're right. It's such a great film.
And Red, the other guy with the big neck wound. And,
Oh yeah, that helps him out at the end there.
Yeah.
The dealer's dealer, I guess it is.
What is that actor's name? Is Daniel something in it?
Danny McBride.
Yeah, Daniel.
Danny McBride.
yeah.
You just got your ass kicked by fucking Daewoo.
I made this cake for my cat. I don't see a cat. We let her out accidentally. My cat died. It was celebrating my cat's birthday, even though the cat's dead. Great top 5, and of course number 1, The Big Lebowski, which I think is gonna make a lot. I think everybody's gonna have it on their top 5. What a great film.
Yeah, it is a great film, man. I mean, it's just a middle-aged stoner trying to solve a mystery, and he really just needs a new rug because that rug really pulled the room together.
Yeah, and it really pulled the room together. And again, he gets for the people who have not seen the film, it's Jeff Bridges, and he gets caught. He's mistaken identity, basically, how it all starts off.
Yeah.
Great cast.
He's the dude, not the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, the dude. Yeah, he's the little Lebowski or the other Lebowski. And so the other one I was going to mention
The deadbeat Lebowski.
that may make it on my list as well is Half Baked. That was your number 3?
Yeah. That was my number
Half-Baked.
3. It just, it has everything in it. Just the plain stoner humor, and then, the adventure to have to save their one friend from prison because he accidentally fed the diabetic horse candy.
Yeah, and the horse dies.
And so, he has to be in jail because of butterscotch. Because he loves him.
You're not a man. You're not a fish, you're a man. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And Mary Jane, right? Is that Dave Chappelle's girlfriend's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's trying to hide the fact that he smokes weed, right?
Yeah, because her father was in jail for selling weed.
Okay. And then there's the guy on the couch, but nobody knows why he's on their couch.
Yeah.
That guy is funny.
That movie actually holds up well and is hilarious. And a great cast. Jim Brewer, Dave Chappelle. I'm forgetting other people. Great movie, though.
Brooks,
Yeah.
I'm very curious to know, what are your top 5 favorite marijuana movies?
My top 5 would be Half Baked because it's the first stoner movie I ever actually went to the theater and saw when I was a teenager. My number 4 would be Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle because that movie was just so funny. It was so much funnier than I thought it was going to be too. It was very surprising. Number 3 would be Dazed and Confused because I just love that movie. It's got a lot of great characters. It's just a good overall movie. Number 2 would be Grandma's Boy because I think Grandma's Boy is one of the funniest movies of all time. And number 1 would be The Big Lebowski because it has the ultimate stoner hero, really.
The dude is exceptionally awesome.
Yeah.
And I like
he
it.
doesn't do anything. He just sits around his house, does yoga. He doesn't do much of anything.
Drinks White
really.
Russians.
Shit just happens to him.
Smokes roaches because he rarely has a full joint, if you notice, in the movie. Okay.
All he
Brooks,
does is bowl.
You have an interesting, you have a very interesting top 5. Elaborate real quick. Grandma's Boy. Number 2, very high on that list. Ahead of Dazed and Confused. Why is Grandma's Boy ahead of Dazed and Confused?
Grandma's Boy is my favorite all-time comedy, I think.
Except for Big Lebowski.
Yeah. That movie.
Lebowski's got some dramatic moments.
Yeah, I got you.
It's about a
mostly
time and a place
comedy,
and a
I would
man.
say The Big Lebowski would trump Grandma's Boy, but it's just something about that movie that appeals to me. The characters that appeal to me, and how similar they are to my own life in some ways. In some ways, less exaggerated ways, perhaps.
When I watched that movie, I was in Panama City with a bunch of friends of mine. JB, Schaefer. You guys know who you are. And a whole lot of other people. Some great people. And We watched that movie like 3 times in 1 week. And Dante in that movie, right?
Dante.
That was a guy that we saw like 4 or 5 different times the whole week at different bars, at the karaoke bar, on the beach. And he looked and talked just like that guy. Like, huh, dude, I got a fucking lion. Like, it was incredible. It was insane. Half Baked, number 5. You got others ahead of Half Baked. Why is that?
Well, Half Baked is a good movie, but there's so many better ones, you know. And it is the first one I ever saw, like, and actually saw a movie where marijuana wasn't being treated as something that would, you know, murder you or kill you or turn you into a rapist or something.
Well, you say that, but is not the resolution of that movie the fact that he quits smoking marijuana to get his life together?
Yeah.
Is that why it's number 5?
You know he's not going to quit. You know he's going to go back to smoking weed.
That's an excellent top 5, man. I really like it. Big Lebowski, absolutely for sure.
Robbie,
Yes.
I would like to know your top 5 favorite marijuana movies.
Number 5. This is really close. Honorable mention, 1999's Saving Grace. I believe it's 99. Might be a different year. Saving Grace.
He's going to do all movies we haven't seen.
You're being the hipster this time?
Yeah.
You're the one who's and pulling out honorable mentions?
It's an honorable
What's
mention,
going on
and
here?
it's a delightful British film about an older lady who has to, I think her husband has died or something, and she's left with a lot of land. She has to start growing marijuana to, save the land. And there's this great part where the people finally come in and burn the marijuana, and they all start getting high.
Yeah.
Well, you double down on me, foreign and hipster.
Well, is British film
What?
foreign?
Yes,
I mean, I
it's
guess
a
so.
foreign film.
Okay,
film.
I guess so. Whether they speak in English. Anyway, my actual top 5. Number 5, 2008, Pineapple Express. That movie is super funny. James Franco's Dealer is probably even almost as good as Jay and Silent Bob's Dealers. Really endearing film. I like it. Number 4, Grass. It's a 1999 documentary, if that's not pretentious.
Yeah, hipster.
That is narrated by Woody Harrelson, obviously, of course. And it's actually really good. It's about the war on marijuana.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It's so good. If you can get a chance to check it out, it's good. It's actually still very applicable for today, but it talks about the history of marijuana prohibition. Why, who, how, and why we need to maybe change some of the laws. Number 3, 1995's Friday. That movie is definitely a pot movie, and it's so funny and it's really good. And its plot, it's not completely solid all the way through, but overall, I think it's a good movie with a very good message.
It's got a good soundtrack, too.
And the key to that movie, unlike Half Baked, is not giving up smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
Well, except for Smokey, I guess.
It's getting started.
Well, I mean, I think he did say he was maybe
He was like, I'm
bullshitting.
just bullshit.
I'm just bullshitting. Number 2, Big Lebowski, 1998. We said a lot about that movie already. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Fantastic. Number 1, Dazed and Confused, 1993.
yeah.
That is a movie where marijuana is a character in the movie.
Yeah.
The movie is not the same without it.
There's
Absolutely
like so
love
many
it.
characters, like Slater's probably the most, the
So
most
good.
affected by it.
Yeah.
But,
But
every character
everybody,
is affected.
all
by it.
different types of people, all different walks of life.
The cool kids, the uncool kids, everybody's meeting up at the same place, basically. and
Everybody's
doing the
meeting at
same
420, yeah. Party at the Moon Tower.
thing. Yeah.
So we were talking about Big Lebowski earlier, and we all loved the film. So why did it make your number 2 and not your number 1?
Because Dazed and Confused is a movie, it's actually probably my absolute most favorite movie of all time. I mean, it's kind of like a tie between it and Citizen Kane. Do I want to be serious or do I want to just have a good time?
Yeah.
And Dazed and Confused is a serious movie to me, but it's also very funny. And it's not like, it's a comedy, but its humor is not quite as in your face as something like
Yeah.
Grandma's Boy or Half Baked or
Yeah.
How High. Like it's not like that. It's subtle, but it's just a slice of life. It's a day in the life of kids in 74. And from what I have heard from people like my parents, that is what 1974 was like. And they went to Lee High School, and their Lee High School looked just like my Lee High School, if you watch the movie, right, James?
Oh, it does.
That movie just holds a special place to me. It's got a great cast. I love the message of the movie, even though it's a very thin plot, really, but it's also very, very deep because it's really just about these kids.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good top 5. Solid all around. I think, again, a lot of overlap, but I assumed as much because there's a lot of weed movies, but there's only a few that I think are just phenomenal.
So far, no Cheech and Chong movies. Let's see
No.
if that maintains.
Surprised.
John, your top 5, please, sir.
Number 5, Cheech and Chong. No, there's no Cheech and Chong on my list either. I do love Cheech and Chong, but not enough to put in my top 5. Again, these are our
Say something
personal.
like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
I guess Lord of the Rings, they smoke pipe weed.
Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
The,
he was the finest in the Shire.
The Empire
right?
Strikes Back. Yoda was a
Again,
stoner.
you get people that these are debatable lists, but these are our personal top 5. So we're not sitting down and whittling out what we think are the 5 greatest weed films of all time. We're our personal favorites, so they endearing to us, or we enjoy them, et cetera, et cetera. So my number 5, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
All right.
I love those characters. It's a fun film. It's hilarious. Greatest film ever? No, not Kevin Smith's greatest film, period. But it's still a fun film, and I love the villain role played by
The Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill.
Yeah, cock
is the
knocker.
cock knocker. Yeah. So it's hilarious. And
Blunt
they
Man
kind
and
of
Chronic, dude.
Yeah, Blunt
That-
Man and
you know,
Chronic.
there you go, man.
They embrace those characters, and I think it's hilarious. Number 4 is going to be Half Baked, which we've already discussed. Great cast, hilarious movie. Love Dave Chappelle in that. Number 3 is going to be Friday, which should be no surprise. It's on most people's list. You didn't get a job. You get no shit to do. It's Friday. Might as well get high.
Yeah, ha. Is it?
So-
Can you hear my heart? Is that my heart beating? It's supposed to do that.
Phone ringing.
He got fired for stealing boxes on his day off. How do you get fired for stealing boxes?
Am I straight?
I love that scene when he's like all nervous after smoking weed because he's all like,
He's like looking down at his shirt, patting himself.
yeah, I love it, man. And
Am I straight?
it's about a dude. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but it's about a dude who's smoking weed kind of almost for the first time. He doesn't really smoke weed, and he does, but it's not showed negatively.
Yeah.
But the movie is deep still.
Yeah, because not only is he smoking weed all day, but it's not just them smoking weed. There's more to the film when he stands up to what's his
Debo,
name? Debo.
yeah.
I love
So-
Debo, man.
yeah.
When Debo entered, you get that music, that dum 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 dum, like he's
Yeah,
like
that
Jaws
Jaws
or
music.
something. Like he's a force of nature. Everybody just has to kind of like, endure him.
My number 2 is going to be Pineapple Express. Again, it's one of those movies. I'm like, this movie looks stupid. I mean, come on, I wasn't doing anything for me in the trailers. I went and saw the movie, laughed my ass off. Great cast. Love Seth Rogen, so there shouldn't have been any doubt. And him and James Franco teamed up together. How can you go wrong? And they've been in obviously multiple films together, and I think they were on Freaks and Geeks together, I believe.
Oh yeah, they
So,
were.
love Pineapple Express. And of course, my number 1 is going to be The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, I figured that.
I moved that to my number 1.
That's the one that's on everybody's list.
Dude.
And it's somewhere within 2 and number 1.
Yeah, everybody has
Robbie.
that within their top 2. I'm the only one that doesn't have it as number 1.
I think so.
Oh wow, I like Dazed and Confused more. John. What? Okay, everybody's got big. Okay, why Big Lebowski then?
Dude, it's Jeff Bridges. I don't know. It's just those.
Oh yeah, I
He
remember.
does
that.
have a man crush on.
I
I remember that from the True Grit thing. Yeah,
Yeah, he's Flynn, man.
You got a crush on Jeff.
I
Bridges.
really like Jeff Bridges.
It's kind of worthy though.
It's a great film. It's a great
He was an Iron Man too.
cast.
No, he was in Iron Man 1.
Yeah, I know. I was saying he was in Iron Man,
Also,
Also,
comma.
in addition to other people, he was in Iron Man.
It's just. I mean, I don't know what to say. That
It's a
hasn't
great
been said.
film. It's
a great
Coen
film.
Brothers. Coen
Yeah,
Brothers,
it's a
man.
Coen Brothers film, and Jeff Bridges does a phenomenal job, and a great cast on top of that. You got John Turturro, John
Jesus.
Goodman.
I love
Yeah,
Jesus.
he has just a great
You're
cast.
fucking with
all
the
around.
Jesus. One of my favorite lines he delivers is, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
this is like you need a toe. I can get you a toe.
With nail polish.
That movie's great, and maybe a lot of people may say that's not necessarily a weed movie, but dude, that movie, guys, is about like we all had good discussions about this separately, except for James. Like James just came up with it, but Brooks asked me, and I asked John. I was like, "Does Big Lebowski count?" And of course it does. Why does it count, James?
Well, it counts because that is 50% of the dude's character is that he's just, he's just a dude who, chills out, smokes weed. He's just, the dude.
Yeah, sits back listening to some Credence or some shit. You know?
Or
He always
to
has Credence in his
a
car.
bowling championship
Yeah,
on cassette,
super good actually. Yeah,
laying on his
right.
rug.
I love. Yeah, he just wants to chill out. The rug
didn't-
really tied the room together. I really
He
like
wanted nothing to do with this mystery.
Yeah,
this
he got
He
Sure,
wanted
he
his
into
rug
it.
back.
it. John, Friday number 3. Me and you both put Friday at number 3. Why Friday right in the middle?
Happenstance?
Playing it safe.
Randomness. I mean, it was hard for me to pick a top 5 of this. So there's some other movies that Dazed and Confused would have been on my list. Grandma's Boy should have probably been on my list. It's hard to narrow it down to the top 5. And I love Friday. I mean, we've watched Friday together. I've seen Friday more than a dozen times. It just so happens that Pineapple Express, I think, is a funnier movie, although Friday is a better film.
We've all had some really good top fives. I've had a lot of fun sitting here, guys, reminiscing about the days of weed smoking, listening to music, watching movies, and all that stuff. Whether you partake or whether you don't, happy 420. Make the best out of the day, because it does have some negative connotations, but let's turn that around. Let's turn that frown or upside down. I want to thank everybody for listening, and if you subscribe to us on iTunes or if you're listening to us on YouTube while watching a video, which is very odd.
Yeah, because I don't think this video does.
Or if you're actually checking us out on our website, join us at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and more. YouTube, please do subscribe. Our next episode, John, we got Marvel Civil War coming out. This is our season of superhero movies. PCP loves this. We got our Marvel Movies podcast coming up with Jonathan Strickland and Justin Goldsmith.
I'm excited about that. I do love comic books and film, and we did the DC one, so I'm really excited for Marvel.
Super excited for Marvel, so please do check that out, coming very, very soon. And as always, subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes and show us some love. We thank you. And now it's time for final thoughts. So thank you, guests, for being here. We've thanked the listeners. Now we thank you guys for participating for just a measly couple of beers. James, final thoughts.
The influence of marijuana on movies and music and everything is a great thing. It's, led to a lot of understanding and tolerance and fun times.
Fun times. Speaking of fun times, Brooks, it's been fun having you on the show once again. Final thoughts.
Well, the movies are like a gateway to marijuana being more acceptable socially. Back is the further back you go, the more like certain kind of people looked away from marijuana, or figured it was against the law, so you shouldn't do it or anything like that. They kind of oppressed the next generation who did it to rebel, who in turn became their parents. And their kids in turn rebelled by smoking weed. So it's like generation after generation has fallen into the weed trap at some point, mostly. No matter where you are or what social station you're in, it's there and you'll find it.
All right, everybody. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thank you once again for joining us. And just to let you know, my own show, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie, actually comes back very, very soon. Please look out for that. And my final thoughts is marijuana can be the great unifier. There are people from all walks of life. Look at the world around you. Look how people are divided between religion, between gender, between race, between ideology and politics even. Everybody is split down the middle, except for potheads. I have smoked weed with people of all walks of life. Everybody can be united. All the music styles, all the film styles. The grand unifier. A wise man once said, if the world smoked weed, there'd be no war. I don't know who said that, but it's just an idea in my head. Anyway, that's my final thoughts. John?
Legalize it. That's my opinion. I may not smoke it, but there's an issue that in some cities, if you get caught with a joint, you go to jail, and there's other places, especially school campuses, college campuses, where you get a ticket. The fact that it's seen differently, depending on the policing community, I mean, it can't be that bad, obviously, if you're a college student, really a fucking ticket? But again, you're downtown Detroit and you get caught with a J. Oh, they'll arrest you for that. So there's something very wrong with that, and the incarceration amount for marijuana is absurd.
And towards minorities.
Yes,
especially.
and minorities. So I think go ahead, legalize it, fucking tax the shit out of it if you have to. Colorado seems to be doing really well
I think
there.
Colorado is a success.
Yeah. So again, I may not partake in it, but I don't have an issue with it, and I think that's the next step. That's my final thought. So thank you for everybody for joining us, listening in, and check us out next time in the Marvel Movies Podcast. We love you guys. PopCulturePhilosophers.com. Thank you.
We'll be back. Same weed time.
Same weed channel.